The Egyptian empire was an infrastructure of mud and straw. The book of Exodus describes a system of forced labor so absolute that the physical reality of the Israelites' lives was consumed by the production of these bricks. To manage this population, Pharaoh issued a decree that transformed the Nile. The river, usually the source of life for the region, was weaponized as a site of systemic execution for every newborn Hebrew boy. One Levite mother attempted to subvert this death sentence with a desperate gamble. She placed her son in the water meant to be his grave, but sealed him inside a small ark hidden among the stalks. The plan relied on the thick growth along the riverbank to keep the child hidden, but the tension broke when Pharaoh's own daughter came down to bathe. She spotted the basket and discovered the crying child. The princess decided to keep the boy, and through the quick thinking of the child's sister, she hired a Hebrew woman to nurse him. The biological mother was now being paid by the royal treasury to raise the son the state had ordered to be drowned. Moses grew up between these two worlds. He was a Hebrew child marked for death, yet he was raised as royalty at the center of the empire that issued the decree. As an adult, Moses left the palace to view the Hebrew laborers for himself. He walked out to face the crushing scale of the empire, witnessing the brutality required to sustain his own royal lifestyle. The tension of his double life snapped when he saw an Egyptian overseer beating a Hebrew laborer. Moses intervened, striking the Egyptian dead. He chose a side with a single blow, then attempted to erase the evidence by hiding the body beneath the desert sand. By committing this murder, Moses effectively discarded his royal immunity. He was no longer just an observer from the palace. He was now physically and legally tethered to the fate of the enslaved. The next day, he returned to the camps and found two Hebrew men fighting. He stepped in to mediate, seemingly expecting that his act of violence the day before had earned him their trust or leadership. Instead, he was met with immediate hostility. The man challenged threw the murder back at him. "Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Moses realized in that moment that his secret was public. The very people he had killed for were now the ones weaponizing that crime against him. When Pharaoh heard of the murder and ordered his execution, Moses fled. He left the borders of Egypt entirely behind, disappearing into the vast, empty landscape of the Midianite desert. Moses was now a fugitive with no place to go. No status in the palace, no welcome among the people, a man without a home. In the land of Midian, Moses encountered a group of women being harassed by shepherds at a well. Even as an exile, his impulse to protect remained. He drove the shepherds away and watered the women's flocks himself. The women were the daughters of Reuel, a local priest. Moses was invited into their family, eventually marrying one of the daughters, Zipporah, and settling into the life of a desert shepherd. When his first son was born, Moses named him Gershom. The name translates directly as a stranger in a foreign land, a permanent verbal marker of how Moses now viewed his own life. Years passed. In Egypt, the old Pharaoh died, but the system of slavery only intensified. The text says the Israelites groaned under their labor, and their cry for help finally rose up from the mud pits to the heavens. After chapters of narrative silence, the text suddenly focuses on the divine response. In 4 sharp verbs, the situation changes. God heard their groaning, God remembered his covenant, God saw the Israelites, and God knew. Moses' time in the desert was no longer just an exile, it was a transition. The prince who once tried to solve injustice with a single impulsive blow was now a shepherd, living the same life of a stranger his people endured, waiting in the desert for the moment he would be called to answer those cries.